All right, welcome to another episode of the Producing Half. I already did this episode earlier in the week. Easter kind of threw me off a little bit. I was traveling on the day I normally do this, and so I did this episode, but the mic was not recording. I have it programmed into a Thunderbolt device, and I guess it has its own separate power that had powered off or something. So it was 40 minutes of me talking to myself, but then again, so is this. Well, welcome again to the Producing Half. This is Thomas. I want to talk today about education. And actually, it might be a good thing that I lost that episode, as I kind of put a couple of extra things together. I was watching a YouTube video from a long time ago, and it really made a few things click in my head, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So how to start off on education. First of all, it's a complete failure. Education in America is a complete failure. I actually, before I get too in depth, I keep looking at my screen because I have a monitoring program monitoring my system resources, trying to figure out what I need to tweak in order to make this not sound so horrific, but absolutely have no idea what I'm doing. So there's that. I'm going to minimize this because it's distracting. So our education system is a complete failure by any measure of the word. America's education system is a complete failure. It's a failure in its ability to educate. It's a failure in its ability to spread our culture, the American way of life. It's a failure in the way that it does not create individuals who are capable of independent thought, who are capable of continuous learning, who are capable of problem solving and critical thinking. There is no problem solving, there is no critical thinking anymore. And always absolutes are always absolutely wrong. That's ironic. But you know what I mean. You run into so many people who cannot figure out how to do anything that they haven't been expressly showed how to do multiple times. Almost everything I do, I had to do it for the first time eventually. I had to figure it out on my own, mainly because I'm stubborn like that, not because there wasn't nobody to show me. I just I like to learn things at my own pace and try them when nobody's watching. So I like to do the first couple times I do something, I like to be alone just so I can figure it out, maybe watching a video, or before there was a video, just taking it apart and putting it back together. That's curiosity and problem solving. You figure out how things are. And for whatever reason, our education system is failing our children big time. Sorry, that's Black Cherry Waterloo. Waterloo probably has the best tasting, the more flavorful water. It doesn't have aspartame in it. I drink a lot of diet soda, so I'm trying to stay away from aspartame as much as possible. So I find this Waterloo, I like the grapefruit flavor the best, but as a side note, as a product placement, I really enjoy the Waterloo. They're not the cheapest, but I guess you get your pay for. All right, so Americans' education system is a complete failure, complete and total failure. Just look at the resources we throw at it. The tax dollars here in Texas that we spend on our education system is horrendous. It almost makes it hard to live, to own your own home, because of the taxes. But even when you rent, the taxes are the same. You're just you're just paying your portion of the landlord's taxes. So it affects everything the taxes do. But when your escrow payment is nearly what your house payment is, there's a problem. And you think you own a house in America, don't stop paying your taxes. Stop paying your taxes and see how long you own that house. You're just renting. You're renting from the mortgage company for 30 years or 15 years, however you financed. I don't recommend a FHA 30-year mortgage if you could avoid it. Some people can't, and so you do it. You want to go conventional if you can. You want to put at least the 20% down so you don't have to have PMI. With FHA, if you put 10% down, you can get rid of it after 10 years. But other than that, you're stuck with it with a life of the loan. Conventional, you can generally get out of it at 20 to 22% equity. position. So anyways, the taxes in Texas are horrific. And those go mainly, a lot of those taxes go to your education system. Thousands of dollars. I pay thousands of dollars a year for my children to get some of the worst education you can imagine. Not only is it the worst education, it's very left leaning, and it's not even based upon facts. There's a lot of political statements in there and a lot of cultural subversion going on. I know it sounds conspiratorial. It's really not. It's just the way things work whenever you have this whole university system that goes around and around. You have your kids grow up through the education system, go through the university, and goes back to the education system. You end up keeping going more and more left. So our education system, I think we can all agree, is not where it needs to be. And, there's... To begin with, they teach to the lowest common denominator. I don't know if that makes sense. They teach to the lowest ability. So if you got a classroom full of kids, they go at the pace where the slowest kids are going at, not where the most elite. And it doesn't matter if you put your kids in AP, because my kids are in AP, and it's the same thing, really. There's not much difference. They put zero effort into anything, and they make A's. It's a requirement at my house. You have to make A's. You have one job. Is to go to school. They don't make you work. You don't really have chores other than like doing dishes and basic human stuff. So you have to make A's, or you lose all your electronics. No phones, no computers, no Xbox, no nothing. Make straight A's. And trust me, it's not a difficult thing for them to do. They put very minimum effort. I get lecture from my wife all the time because I tell my children they're the tallest midget in the circus. Whenever they're the number one in their class, I'm like, you're just the tallest midget in your circus, kid. Don't get too excited about it. I saw how much effort you put in it. I would say they don't bring school books home, but there are no school books. They don't give them school books anymore. The school books are either in the classroom or they're on a computer. There are no, and that's dangerous because when they used to bring school books home, you could read the school books with the children. You can go, wait, this is not how the American Revolution happened. This is not what happened in the Civil War. This isn't why we revolted against England. No, George Washington wasn't all about that. But no, you can't now, and they can make instant changes to the school books as their politics change, and you'll find that politics play a big role in education these days. It's sad. But yeah, back to the ability of the students is that they don't challenge them. It's so easy. My children put so little effort into school to make A's, and it's a struggle for them to make A's. What I mean by that, it's a struggle to see how little effort they can put into it. I mean, the thing that gets them the most is just checking their grades. I'll go in and check their grades. I'm like, hey, you got this assignment missing, this assignment missing, this assignment missing. And they'll be, well, I turned those in, and then they'll go on to their Google Drive. I'm like, oh, I don't know, I didn't submit. Let me resubmit it. They did the work. So sometimes they'll have, a horrible grade in a class, but they've done all the work. They just haven't turned it in, or the teacher lost it, and the teacher can't figure out how to access the technology. This whole staying at home thing this year has been a complete and total disaster. The teachers do not know how to use the technology. Half the grades my kids get is just signing on to their Zoom class and answering the attendance question, which is basically, what is your favorite ice cream, or what is the name of your pet, or what's your favorite movie? That is, and they get an A for that day. They get 100 because they logged into their Zoom. There are kids that have never logged into their Zoom. You'll hear the teacher saying something on the Zooms, and the Zooms has really exposed the teachers this year. The things that we've heard the teachers say in this year on the Zooms in classes that they shouldn't even be talking about the subject. I think there was it was like a math or science teacher on my eldest kid's class was comparing the Black Lives movement, the BLM movement, which is a Marxist organization. It was created by Marxists, and comparing it to the Boston Tea Party and the Founding Fathers. So sometimes I have to spend 20 to 30 minutes every evening deprogramming my children and explaining them how the world really works. And I kind of come at it from a very non-specific. I try to keep it very unspecific, because I know when you start educating yourself, when you start reading and looking into things, you realize how ignorant you are. I mean, there's a lot I thought about the founding fathers that I was wrong. I really did. I was really wrong about what happened. I've been reading a lot of books, even this week. I've read 2 books this week, listened to, on the Constitution and the founding fathers. And a lot of what I thought about the Federalists and the Republicans back then was wrong. A lot of the people I thought were very states oriented were not. They were monarch. They were monarchists. They really liked the power of a monarchy, and that really influenced how the kind of power they want to give up to the federal government and and how weak they wanted the Constitution to be as far as limiting the limiting the constitutional power and limiting the Congress's ability to alter or stray from the Constitution. So I learned a lot this week just on that, and realized that what I thought I knew from the watching John Adams special series that was on HBO, I think, a long time ago. I made my kids watch it too. I don't really know what I'm talking about, and so I try to keep it the lectures to very broad strokes, basically on philosophy and just the general way things work. The things that I'm sure about, because it's not specific dates and facts, and you don't have to have quotes to back it up. It's just different. It's the way the world works and has worked, generally speaking. So yeah, I mean, this week alone, I've had 2 or 3 lectures with my children on how the world works, and what they've been learning in school isn't necessarily the right thing. So back to school. There's no accountability in school. There's no accountability to the teachers. There's no accountability to the students. My children have no accountability. The fact that they're nice and pleasant children, that aren't rude and they don't stab the teacher, because that's literally happened to one of my kids. One of my students' peers stabbed the teacher with a pencil in the neck. Says my children are polite and well behaved at school, not at home. At home, they're not well behaved or polite. That's my fault. But at school they are, because they know that's a line that I don't put up with, and they will be severely punished if they're not. And they're just good kids, for the most part. But they don't cause problems, so they're considered top students because they don't cause problems. There's zero accountability for the teachers or the students. There's no accountability. Everything at school nowadays is test and stat driven. They just want to see where their standings are with the test and the STAR test or whatever test they come out with, which again teaches they don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to apply any of the information that that they're kind of learning, because they're learning to take a test. That's it. That's all they're teaching them, is to learn to take a test. They're teaching them to, I think George Carlin said it, they want you just smart enough to operate the machines, but not smart enough to revolt or question them. Of course, he said it in a very witty, funny way. I think he ended it with, it's a big club and you're not part of it, or something like that. But it was a very good quote and true. School today teaches obedience. It teaches conformity. It totally suppresses individualism. It suppresses creativity, critical thinking. It doesn't want any of that. I know that because I'm a math major. My son would bring home his math homeworks, both of them, and I'd help them with the math homework. But the teacher would say, no, they got the question wrong. I'm like, no, they got it right. They gave you the right answer, but they didn't do it. This common core weird way that makes everything more complicated, and it just teaches you to almost like a computer. Weirdly, now that I just thought of that, but it does. It teaches you like a computer way of doing it, so you don't have to understand it. You just got to follow the steps. If you just follow the steps, you'll get to the right solution, and you'll get the right answer, but you don't understand why it's the right answer. And it's weird how that works. Common Core, it's definitely I got some issues with it. I haven't studied enough to really say it's a horrific system or not, but the little exposure I've had to it, I have not had positive. But school should teach the fundamentals first. You should start in the very beginning, pre-K, kindergarten. You should start it on honor and honesty and hard work and integrity and reinforcing the American culture, self-reliance. They should do that. And then they should also teach, philosophy, and they should teach different languages. I heard somebody recently say on a podcast that one of the ways that they're able to stay out of the doublethink or the new speak of today's times is that they know multiple languages, and so they think in more than one languages. And whenever you say things in one language, when you're on your TV and you hear a bunch of things, and you're like, man, I don't know about that. I don't know if it makes sense or not. It seems kind of weird, but oh well. And you move on. Well, when you speak and think in more than one language, it doesn't translate. Those weird concepts, the way people talk in circles and inconsistencies, they don't translate into another language. And so when you do it, when you say what was said to you again in another language, you realize how utterly ridiculous it was and pointless it was. So they should teach more than one language from the very beginning. It's harder to learn it in high school than it would be in kindergarten. But they should teach history, like the real history of America and American culture, not this weird leftist, revisionist history where America's bad and everybody's racist and we're just evil corptocracy or whatever. Not too wrong there anymore. They should also teach philosophy and not critical race theory, which is insane, or critical theory or theory with a capital T. None of that. Just core, philosophy, the good old philosophy, Socrates and Plato and all that. They should teach that as a way of thinking. Of course, they should teach all the physical skills. They should teach practical things. They should teach, how to repair small appliance repairs and how to, troubleshoot a computer, things like that. I'm old. I'm 46 years old, about to be 47, and everybody I work with these days is younger than me, a lot younger. 20, they're in their early 20s. Some of them are in their 30s, but most of them are in their 20s, and they can't use a computer. It makes no sense to me. I was thinking about this the other day, and it finally clicked that it's because they do everything on their phone. And so they don't know how to use a computer. And it's weird because my first computer was an Apple, my first computer was a TRS-80 color computer too. But in school, the first computer I messed with was a Apple IIe. And so you did everything in DOS back then. So you had to type all the commands out. But it helped. I guess that fundamental knowledge really helped me through life. And my first computer I owned was a Windows 95. So they don't really make them better than Windows 95. And Windows XP was pretty good, but all the other Windows were pretty bad. I don't know about Windows 10. I do have it. I'm using it, but I haven't played with enough to know how good and stable it is and how many issues I'm going to have with it. But they need to teach American culture, the real American culture of hard work and individualism and states' rights and, did I say individualism? Responsible for oneself, mind your own business. You don't get to tell people what to do. The rights that you're sovereign unto yourself, and then your small community is sovereign, and then your larger community is sovereign, and then finally your state is sovereign, and the federal government is just there for a few things. That's it. We basically live in a monarchy right now, where the monarchy is the three branches, which are really unified into one. I guess it's an oligarchy in reality, but it's the same system. It's the same flaws that were put in there from the very beginning by the people who believed in monarchy, who wanted there to be a king, who believed in that form of government, with, I guess, the parliament as well. So what do we do about our education system? Well, we spent a ton of money on it. We spent enough money on it that we could do anything we wanted with it. Our education system could be the best that this planet has ever seen with the amount of money we spend on it. But they don't want it. There's no way for our education system to be as bad as it is on accident. You need to understand that. One of the greatest things the government ever did, one of the greatest things the devil ever did is convince the world that he doesn't exist. Have you ever heard that? Well, the greatest thing the government did is to convince the world that it is stupid and incompetent. I don't believe that it is. I believe that the individual parts of it are The individual players, the politicians are pretty ridiculous. But they have access to the best science. They have access to the best philosophy, the best psychiatrist or psychologist. They know how to manipulate everything. They know how it works. And I heard a saying once that said you can change a country, a people, a culture, in one generation through war. You can do it in 2 generations through the educational system by educating the youth. And that is what they're doing. And we're 3 generations into that, really, probably by now. At least a solid 2, if not a solid 3 or going on 3. But I think if we redid our education system, now me and my wife disagree on this because she has to deal with my children's students, their peers more often. So she's maybe a little bit more black-pilled on this, but I'm more white-pilled in that I think that 90% of the children in America, no matter what their race, color, creed, whatever those ways they choose to divide us, no matter what it is, 90% of them, no matter how rich or poor they are, if they were educated properly from the very beginning with a complete revamping of the system, back to the honor, integrity, honesty, merit system, hard work, individualism, accountability. They were educated from the very beginning the right way with the right core fundamentals. I believe 90% of the children could graduate high school with a 4-year bachelor's degree in whatever field they wanted, be it pre-med, law, physics, mathematics, biology, chemistry, doesn't matter. 90% of them. 90%. Now, there are just people who, for whatever reason, aren't very good at book learning, or they're not good at, mathematics, or they're not good at those things, and they're never going to be, no matter how hard you try. It's just not their talent. Well, that 10% can be good at something. They're not dumb. They just have different skills. And so they would graduate high school with 4 years experience in some sort of technical skill. 4 years as a plumber, or 4 years as an electrician, or 4 years as a pipe fitter, or a welder, or a carpenter, or whatever the case may be. There's lots of trades out there that make just as much money and are just as fulfilling and rewarding and maybe even more necessary than a lot of the more academic type things. And it wouldn't be a 90-10, it'd probably be like an 80-20 situation if we really did it, because a lot of people, even who could go to a 4-year, who could graduate with a bachelor's degree in one of the sciences, wouldn't want to. They have a preference to be a carpenter or whatever, and they don't want to go on to be a biologist or a doctor, even if they have the ability to do it. Okay, that's fantastic. We should have our school system set up so that at the end of when they graduate and they're 18 years old, they've got a bachelor's degree. Now, the universities don't want that. They don't want to lose that power and control over the students. They definitely don't want everybody rolling into the university to already have a firm foundation on American culture and history and philosophy and all these crazy ways that psychologists manipulate them. They surely don't want them rolling in the universities with that skill set. No, they wouldn't be able to do what they do to them. So, the universities would 100%. And where do you think those teachers come from? They come from the universities. They come from the colleges. And so it's a never-ending cycle of getting more and more woke. It's really not the best word. More left-leaning reading. We'd have to have supreme accountability in this new system. That'd be you'd have to be very results driven. Life's results driven, and I tell that to everybody I ever run into in the work world. They're like, man, I did this and this and this and this, and they're still not happy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the results. If you can come to work and get more results than everybody in 4 hours, then you're the winner. It doesn't matter that everybody else there put in 10 hours. You got the results. You had more results than them, so you're more successful than them. So it needs to be results driven. It's not. I can't say this enough. It's not bad on accident. Our education system is not bad on accident. They can't have the American populace free thinking. They can't have us as free thinking, independent ability to learn, the ability to critical think. They can't have that. It would destroy their power structure. It would destroy the ability to manipulate you. Everybody I know that is just a normal person, they believe whatever their TV tells them is true. I don't even argue with them. I may say a snippet here or snippet there or something just to kind of shake their world a little bit or make them go, huh, that guy's crazy. But I'm very, very minimum because they wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't. They're so trapped in what CNN says or even what Fox News says. They're just two sides of the same coin. Fox News is a little better, but that's not saying much. But the rest of the news media out there is actively trying to manipulate and destroy the American people and the American culture. They're trying to destroy the American working class, the middle class America, the core of America. Haven't really looked into it enough to understand their ultimate goal with thing. I mean, I've read people say things like, they want city states where, there's a technological, whatever. There's an elite that has access to all the technology and everything, and then the rest of us are just, living in like a third world nation outside of these city states, these giant cities where, I don't know, it kind of sounds like Hunger Games, really. And, we're just the laborers, and we're plowing the fields or building whatever they need us to build while they live in the lap of luxury. I don't know. I don't see that happening, but I have heard that, and it's hard to put my mind around what their ultimate goal is because there's a truth, and I heard, actually, the guy, we'll get to this guy. It's a YouTube video. I saw it long time ago, and I resaw it again this week, and I was like, wow. Oh, wow, that made so much sense, and now I get it. It made a lot of sense to me. So we have to counter the propaganda. Like I said, I spend 20, 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week just countering the propaganda, trying to show them, the world's a little, yesterday I spent 30 minutes talking about the banking, the financial system, banking, fractional reserve banking, and fiat currency, and our debt economy, and how that all works. We talked about the gold standard and Nixon and everything about that. And that was like yesterday or the day before yesterday. And then there was another day we were talking about, I forget what it was. I think it was history. Maybe it was the founding. Oh, it was the Constitution. We were talking about the Constitution and state rights. So you just got to counter the propaganda as much as possible. I know it's hard because you don't even know. Your kids don't come to you and say, "Hey, my teacher said this. Is it true?" You kind of have to hear them say something and go, "Wait, what did you say?" No, that's not how that works. And go through that. That's why I make them watch things that they probably don't want to watch. I know they don't want to watch from all their complaining. I saw this lady a long time ago. Her name was Charlotte Iserbite, I don't know. She was Reagan. She worked in Reagan administration as like some sort of education secretary or director or something, in charge of something with the education system. And she was kind of a whistleblower. And when I saw her a long time ago, and it was a long time ago, maybe in the very beginnings of YouTube or maybe even before YouTube, I can't even remember. It was a long time ago. I saw her and she was a little bit weird to me. I kind of took her as like a little bit of a conspiracy theory wacko. I was, maybe 20 years ago or more. And so it was a little, I wasn't educated enough or awakened to the world enough to understand what she was saying. I rewatched it. I watched a different interview she recently, I thought she had passed away by now, but no, I think she's still alive. I watched a recent interview that she did, and and I was like, wow, yeah, what she's saying is true about how this was. And they saw it back during the beginning of the Reagan days. They saw it coming through. It was the deliberate dumbing down of America. That might even be the name of the book she wrote. I haven't read it. It might have been the name of the book, but it's what it is. It was the deliberate dumbing down of America. It was done deliberately. Psychologists put together the plan. These psychologists came out of the universities. The universities are Marxist, Leninist, communist ideology. And it's so ironic because this other guy, I just re-listened to his interview, some KGB guy, I don't know his name. He defected from Russia, and he's like warning America. And this video was probably, in the 80s, maybe, I guess. was a pretty bad quality video, and he was talking about how the KGB spends, 85% of its budget on propaganda, 85% of its budget on educating the next generation of America and kids in Stalinism and Marxist communism. He went through the cycle of how that works. And when I heard this again this week, it was after I recorded this the first time around, I was like, wow, that is what's happening. I mean, he got the time frame off, Reagan did a better job, I guess, at countering it, so he got some of the timing off. And the Soviet Union collapsed, which probably delayed it all. But the process that was started, I don't think stopped, because that ideology was like a cancer in the universities, and it's kept going. So you're like, how can this happen? Well, when you have these teachers that come out of these universities, let's say however many years ago, they come out and they were normal when they went in, but they're a little bit more left when they get out of this university, and they go and become the politicians, the lawyers, the media. They become the media, and they also become the teachers. Well, all these people participate in getting a whole nother generation that starts in the university even further left, and then they get out of the university even much further left. Well, you do that 2 times is enough to where you get people who, if you tell them that there are boys and girls only, they fall down on the ground screaming that you've assaulted them. I've seen the videos. They're screaming and crying about how abusive you are, that you said, well, there's a boy and there's a girl. There's some medical oddities that happen if you have some genetic manipulation where you can get people who, whatever reason, are missing some sex traits. But for 99.9999% of people, it's going to be a boy or a girl. And I actually, believe it or not, got a little bit woke this week as it finally kicked into my brain what the whole gender sex thing. I kind of understood the woke gender thing about more than one gender. I think it's completely pointless. You can be a girl and like boy things. You can be a boy and like girl things. That doesn't mean you have to have a new name for your gender. They called the girls like that tomboys when I was a kid. It didn't mean anything. It just mean they like to play sports or ride bikes or do crazy things like with the boys. They didn't make them not a girl or not a boy. And even if you were gay or lesbian, it didn't make you not a boy or not a girl. But I understand the whole gender nuance now. Oh no, I might be no, I'm not getting programmed. I just understand where they're coming from and don't necessarily 100% disagree that, yeah, there is some nuances to gender when you define. Now, this is the problem with the critical race theory and all that, where everything's racist. They redefine terms and words, and they end up with these very circular arguments that are not founded in any facts or anything you could write down and then counter on purpose. They don't want you to have arguments that you could counter. They want to be very nonsensical. So you can't counter them. You can't say, well, this is not true. This is what this works. So that's not true. So they don't have facts or positions that are very easy to counter on purpose. So you can't argue with them. And anyways, this Russian KGB was talking about, he said these words, and it reminded me of the video of the girl who was crying because a medical doctor was talking about sex, about chromosomes, XY and XX and X4 and Z2 and whatever she was talking about. I know that doesn't exist. I was being facetious. But, and he said that once the programming is fully in place, and this is a KGB guy talking about what they were actively working on to do to America, what they were actively attempting to do. So this isn't a conspiracy. This is the guy who was doing it, actively telling you what he was doing. He says, once these people have been programmed, you can't talk to them. You can't communicate with them. You can't reason with them. You can't change their mind. They're gone. They're lost. And he did say something else which I find highly true. And I knew it was true, but I didn't understand why it was true. And he quantified it for me so that I actually understood why it's true. So I always knew that if these leftists ever did win, the very leftist who caused the country to fall and become a Marxist or communist or Stalinist, however you want to define that socialistic government that will end up, that horrific, how will end up, that they would be the first to be lined up and put to their knees and dig in their own graves. They'd be the first. They'd be the first to suffer that fate. And I knew that was true, and I don't know why I knew that was true. Maybe it's from watching old movies during the Russian days or something. I don't know. But I always knew that to be truth. But then this KGB guy said, because these very people would be the first ones to join the resistance once they realized the system that they put in place wasn't what they thought it was, and it wasn't what they were told it was going to be. And so they'd be the first to join the resistance. They'd be the first to be a problem. So, and I remember it was probably the Nazi channel. Some of y'all might call it the History Channel or Discovery. I forgot. Whenever I had cable when I was a kid, it's like that's all they ever played was just Nazi shows after Nazi shows. But I remember a documentary that talked about how when Stalin came to power, he killed all the people that got him into power. He also killed every military leader he had, and that's why he did so horrible against Germany. And I remember that they said that he killed all the people who supported him to get him there, all the revolutionaries, all the Marxists who helped him overthrow it all and get into power. I remember thinking at the time, well, that's weird. Why would you do that? Those are the people your loyalist followers. And then this KGB guy that I listened to this week, it just clicked in my head. That's why they do it. Because what they're fighting for, they're not fighting for. When they finally get this done and they look like they're winning, I know there's some people out there that think that they won't. Whenever literally every media organization and all the universities and the government, all the politicians are actively at war with the American working class, I don't understand how we can win. I don't. I hope somebody out there knows and has figured it out and is working towards it. I mean, I'm doing my little part with these podcasts, but, the 3 people who listen, 2 people, my children, I'm doing as much as I can, but I don't see how we win. These universities are in love with communism. It's just the university cycle. They just repeat it, and they're the ones who become the media, who become the teachers, and become the politicians. They went through these universities. And you're like, how can they vote for these laws? Because they've been programmed to this weird leftist way of seeing the world. It's never worked. I don't understand. It has never worked. Communism, socialism, Marxism, it can, you know what, I'm wrong. It could work in a very small, homogenous, monoculture population. It could work. I mean, if there was a million of me's living in a city, we could be very socialist because we'd all have the same value system. We would all really be in it for each other. And we would all see everything from the same point of view. So we would all know what we were all going to do, and it would work. But that's not how humanity works. So it's not going to happen that way. Maybe in 10,000 years we'll be at a point where we could do that. But we're definitely not there. Since the very beginning, people who ever came to this country, they learned that socialism doesn't work. Capitalism works. Not the capitalism we have now, this crony capitalism where the corporations, the mega corporations control the governments, they make the laws so that only they can exist and you can't get in there. No, that's not capitalism. That's not. We don't live. Hasn't been capitalist for a long time. So why are these guys doing what they're doing? I mean, they're really into the whole one world government, the money, the greed. They don't understand. They're very care about myself and not my children. I don't know. I mean, look what we did for the whole COVID thing, how we sacrificed our children's happiness, our children's future, our children's education, our everything about we 100% threw our kids under the bus for this COVID thing. For old people, I don't know a single old person out there who would not have sacrificed for their grandkids. I don't know a single one. So I don't understand that. I know on the last time I did this, I talked about my children's, just to kind of give you an idea how bad it was, how bad it is out there now. I talked about my children's science fair their experience in the science fair. Every year they've been able to compete. They haven't been able to compete the last year or 2. Every year they've competed, they've always, because they were in the same school together, first and second. The eldest come in first, the youngest come in second. Or whenever the youngest was too young because they didn't have it in the eldest was first. by a huge margin. Like, it wasn't even close. And it's not because I have genius children. Every day I'm reminded that I don't, as they can't even manage to put their clothes away or do the most basic things without being told 14 times. But just because they follow the directions, and because they had my wife's help, not mine. I did the technical parts of the experiment. The wife's the one who helped them with the presentation. Oh, they were just making the board look nice. Making them not be lazy. No, go redo that. Doesn't look right. No, you didn't spell that right. No, use the computer. Don't handwrite it. Print it out. Make it nice. No, the direction said you had to do this. So she was in charge of that. And so literally, their projects were the only projects that qualified to even go on to the city level. And they won there too. My eldest did he proved relativity using a cloud chamber. Sounds complicated, it's not. Literally, it's an iPhone camera, some dry ice, and a glass tube, and filming and watching the particles that shouldn't exist, but because of time dilation, they're able to make it down to the Earth because they don't exist for long enough. They shouldn't be able to make it down to Earth. So it's a lot. It sounds complicated. It's not. Muons, I believe, is what he was looking for. And my youngest did his last one was on. He did his on Wi-Fi signals, on materials and how they blocked Wi-Fi signals. I bought a $100 meter that could measure Wi-Fi signals, and we would, put a Wi-Fi on one side of a material and just do it. And so I helped with the technical. The wife helped them do the presentation. Well, the other kids, you could tell, and it's not the parents' fault. Probably, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. My wife's a stay-at-home mom. They're probably working. They don't have time. And plus, like me, they didn't have a foundation in education. My parents didn't care. As long as I wasn't in jail, that's all they cared about. They didn't care about what I did in school. They didn't care what grades I made, we never even mentioned the word college. So that was never something that they talked about. So they probably had parents like that too, who didn't value education. Luckily, I was always curious, and I hated not knowing something. So that helped me be an independent thinker and somebody who reads. Although these last few weeks have let me know how ignorant I am. And it's like a mad dash to correct that. It's like trying to learn, 20 years of information through a fire hose. Trying to drink water through a fire hose. Anyway, so my children, they just turned in, normal, I think, projects, but they were just visually appealing, and they met all the requirements. The other kids who turned in they were done in crayon. Things weren't spelled right. They didn't follow the directions. They didn't meet any of the minimum requirements, and they all got A's just because they turned them in, because most of them didn't. And that is our education system. You get an A just for not stabbing the teacher and showing up, and you're able to get through school. I mean, I never took a book home. We had school books back then. I never had to take a school book home. I figured out how the system worked, and I played it. I knew that for my school only gave a 50 in the 6 weeks of the lowest grade you made, so I didn't even have to do anything for two whole grading periods. The third grading period, I'd make an A on the semester exam, and I passed. I got credit. Like I said, education wasn't important in my family, so it didn't matter. As long as I passed, that's all they cared about. And I passed. I passed with okay grades, too. Literally not doing anything for 2 grading periods. Not turning in a single assignment. The 1 year I actually decided, let's see if I can make straight A's if it's hard. I made all 100s. Perfect straight A's. Teachers were like, they didn't understand what was going on. And there was lots of conferences and stuff. And they had papers that I wrote. One of them, they had me sign a waiver so they could publish it in an English book. At the time I was so proud of it. Looking back, they were probably publishing it to make fun of me. That was probably so ridiculous in what I said. Because, I mean, trust me, if you think you're smart, and I've always thought I was smart because I surrounded myself with people who didn't challenge me and people who weren't educated and knowledgeable. So I'm always the smartest person in the room. Everybody always looks to me to ask, hey, Thomas, how's this work? Or how's that work? What do we do about that? Or, and like, well, what's this? And who's this? And I always know the answer because I'm just the tallest midget in the circus. I'm not sure you can say that anymore. It's a saying I've said all my life. I don't think midget's a bad word. Little people? The tallest little person in the circus? Anyways, reading these books and listening to some of these podcasts where these people actually know what they're talking about, I realize how ignorant, not dumb, because I have the ability to learn, although I've been dumb for 20 years. but how ignorant I am and how unknowledgeable. And some fundamental things that I just thought were truths about the founding fathers have kind of blown my mind this week. How little I know. And I definitely won't be talking from a position of confidence as much as I learn all these things. I'll try to keep it as general as possible. But that's my take on the education, our failed education system. I'm still white-pilled about it. I'm white-pilled at the ability of it. And oh, by the way, white-pilled just means optimistic. Black-pilled means you're not. So I'm still optimistic about what we could do. I mean, humans are so great, and we have so much potential. If you stop letting them divide us over every little nuance. Oh, is this skin darker than his skin, or is this a boy or a girl, or does this person believe in this God or that God? Or if you stop letting them divide you and pit you against each other, which is what they want. They want as much hatred and animosity as possible because that's how they control you. And this is not a conspiracy. If you listen to my previous podcast on conspiracies, it's not. It's what you would probably do too if you were generationally wealthy. If you grew up with all that wealth and power, it's just what you would do too. You are smarter than probably we are. I mean, so I get it. I just don't get why we allow them to do it. Anyways, that's all I wanted to do today was just get this thing on education out because it's very frustrating to me as my tax bill just came in and it went up significantly again so that my children can go get babysitted all day and not get an education, a real education. It's my fault. I could homeschool them. I'm too lazy for that and it's too overwhelming and I work a lot and I don't want to, the little bit of free time I get, I guess I don't care about kids enough to spend it educating them. That's on me. So I'll do my little part and I'll have to live with that. And hopefully my children will love education as much as me and further their learning. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to the Producing Half. We are on Facebook now. I upload these to YouTube as well as the podcast. And I do have a Facebook page, The Producing Half, YouTube, The Producing Half, and obviously on, if you're listening to this, on Podbean, or I'm trying to get on Apple iTunes. For some reason, it's not letting me on. You can add it on if you go to the Podbean. You can add it on manually with the RSS feed. And we're on Spotify as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. I will be back next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise, with another podcast. Thank you very much.